what is the through line that I think is really interesting as the tools create greater ease and greater acceleration and reduce barriers is I think the human piece is the most important piece more than ever because what matters? Judgment, taste, point of view, ingenuity, right? Those are the things that I think will create sparks and difference in a world where the tools become more baseline, where there's more access and those are more standard. Um, the brightest commodity will be that creative spark.
And today we have a very interesting guest. Kristine Segrist is the global head of consumer and product marketing at Canva. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Canva, but Canva is a global design platform that empowers individuals and teams to create professional quality content quickly and easy. It has a mission to enable anyone to design anything. Christine, welcome to our show.
Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. It's so great to be here and speak with you this morning.
Before we talk about you, which I'd like to know about your background because you do have an interesting background, but can you just do a better job describing Canva? I played with it online, so I kind of have a sense
Oh,
of what it is.
good.
But
Yeah.
like, can you just describe what the mission is, what the product is, why we're excited to have you?
You are right. Canva is an online design and collaboration platform. We have the good fortune of serving 260 million people all around the world.
Wow.
And I think the way to think about Canva in the simplest terms is it allows you to take whatever idea you have in your head, whatever dream, project, anything you're kind of cooking up, and to realize that in a design quickly. And it was built to really create that in an accessible way for
Mhm.
folks. So, a word we talk about a lot internally is the idea of feeling empowered. I think even 10 years ago, the ability to render something in your mind in a design was the domain of a few if you were a designer by trade or a official creative. And now it's just the idea if you're a small business owner, if you're a creator, if you are an educator, if you work at an enterprise institution and you're like, gosh, no one reads my newsletter. Like, how can I just break through? It's just putting those tools in everybody's hands.
I
Yes.
just have to say, I'm so excited to hear you talk about this because just last week I
Yeah.
collaborated with two academics in the field, and we're putting together a proposal for one of our journals to study what AI design does from a consumer behavior
Mhm.
point of view. Like, how do consumers use it? How do consumers respond to it? How does it change? And we're going to try to do it. We're going to try to do it to encourage new research, like new primary research on people thinking about it. But I was thinking, you probably have some of those answers that we were.
And we
I mean,
should
I could
partner
probably
on this.
read
What an
my
amazing
proposal
study.
to you and maybe you know the answer. Like, one of the things we were thinking is, how does a consumer respond differently to an AI generated design than there's a lot that goes into that. They have to understand it's AI generated, but can they tell that? And then if they can tell that, do they respond differently? I mean, there's a lot of things one might intuitively guess about it, but I'm guessing you have more than intuition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the way we think about it is AI is just a new set of tools at
Yep.
people's fingertips. And we try to pull it back to the idea of what are the goals people are trying to accomplish. If
Yes.
you open up Canva, you have a goal. It might be a little goal to send out a birthday invitation for your son. It might be a
Mhm.
big goal, like launching a whole new business.
Mhm.
So, what we want to do is give you the right tools where it just feels really easy. So, you can drag and drop something. You might
Mhm.
have something in your mind and you just want to write a prompt to see it magically come to life. Like maybe
Mm.
it's a unicorn, DJing on Mars, like, I could prompt that in and there I would see something
Yeah.
rendered. But one thing that we think is important is this idea of having, human in the loop. How do you
Mm.
keep the human very, very centered? Not just from a perspective of their imagination driving the whole process, but also the idea of getting an image or an output that you can edit and that you can manipulate and that you can shape. Because I think
Mhm.
people really do want to make things their own. And they have a
Mm.
sense of pride when you say, "Yeah, gosh, I made that. I can't believe I
Mhm.
made that. Look how great that
Interesting.
looks." That
Yeah.
AI is just another
Yep.
tool or an accelerant to get you there. So
Yeah.
that's really our view, is that it's just coming back to goal accomplishment.
Mm.
AI is just another tool and a bit more wind at your back to help you get there faster.
Nice. I love that point, Christine. There's two things that jump out at me when I hear you make that commentary. It's really nice. The first has to do with this idea of not being seduced into trying to use AI in a mindless way. In other words,
Mhm.
as some kind of hammer looking for a nail. In other
Yes.
words, I love your point about, there's a goal that needs to be achieved, there's a problem to be solved. How
Right.
does AI facilitate that? That's point number one. Point number two, which I want to get your reaction to, is stepping a little bit back to Barbara's point about I love
I
this
like to
because
step back
it's
to my point too, actually.
she's ladies and gentlemen, she's
Right.
always making connections. She's always connecting the dots. It's like six-dimensional chess here. But I love this point because when Barbara said like the democratization of creativity,
Mhm.
I said that's
I hear
beautiful.
what you're saying, but I do wanna double down on that because I do think people will react differently if they know it's AI. I mean, I think that's what you're saying also, Americus. I hear you. I like what you're saying, but I do think there is something different if AI designs it versus a creative soul does it, and some people are creative and some people aren't, and that's what you're talking about, the democratization of now everybody is creative. Like that
Well,
you've added that dimension. No, but you've added that dimension to my point. Like I was
Right.
saying,
everyone can create is I
right,
think
Yeah.
right,
is
but that is what essentially what happens
yeah.
is
Yeah.
the differentiators in people's identity go
Yep.
away, and at some point people might react to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really meaty topic. I would say that
Yeah, nothing but the meatiest topics here in Marketing Matters.
so
That's
many entry
funny.
points into this topic.
That's
I
right.
would say a few things. I would challenge the idea that not everyone's creative. I think people get it beaten out of them early, whether
Mm,
it's through school or maybe you don't
interesting.
draw well, or maybe it's, you feel
Interesting.
it's very vulnerable, the act of creation, right?
Ah,
I mean,
mhm.
to put yourself out there and to make something. But I think a lot of ways people talk about being creative might be through the lens of, well, I solve problems, or I'm making this output for this like logical cerebral thing. But at the end of the day, you are creating. There's a
Yeah,
spectrum. Now
yeah.
that said, we have incredible respect and obviously revere designers, creatives. I mean, creativity and design is in our DNA. We just think that it's a broader landscape of allowing more people to
Mhm.
bring their ideas to life. And, our origin story, our founder, Melanie Perkins, she was teaching design tools at a university in Perth. And what she was observing is it was just so hard for people. Folks
Mhm.
were having to do such an upward curve of learning, and they were spending so much time trying to massage the technology that they just weren't getting in flow. Like they weren't
Mm.
flow, they weren't getting to their ideas. So it all really came from, how can we put all of this into one page, make it really easy, really intuitive, and just invite more people to see their ideas come to life in a world that's inherently visual. I mean, we all engage with visuals in a
No,
in
I
a
know,
just
I actually teach
visual
a
way.
course on visual marketing, so I
You
couldn't
can
agree
you can
more.
school me on this, Barbara. It's, before your cerebral thinking brain even clicks in, you're having
Yeah.
a reaction. You're in tons of information, and we're just hardwired
Absolutely.
for it. And it felt like that should be an opportunity for everybody to have a
Interesting.
communication and a visual conversation with others.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, Christine, because again, I'm trying to kind of connect the dots here, which I think is super interesting. This idea of how many members, subscribers? Did I hear the number 260 million? Did I hear that
Yes, that's
correctly?
right. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
shocking. So
When
congratulations
was
on
your
that.
company started?
We were started a little over 10 years ago. So,
Yeah.
Been
but
around.
a lot of the
Yeah.
growth has been, word of mouth, honestly,
Yeah.
for
For
a
sure.
large period of the company, where
Yeah.
people were just sharing they had a great experience, they were able to make something,
Yeah. Yeah.
those kind of
Yeah.
moments of pride. And then more recently, I would say even over the past, let's call it
So
4
let
years.
me
Wait,
just
wait,
get to my
before you go
question
in,
real quick.
can I ask one question, Americus, before you go into your question? Just on this point of your description, how much of your, customer base is like consumer versus enterprise?
Well, we really grew up more, consumer, more
Mhm.
focused on having strong product market fit with, again, like SMBs, creators, teachers are a really, really important group for us
Yep.
to serve. But increasingly, in the past 2 years, we've also been looking at what are the goals people want to solve at
Yep.
scaled.
Yep.
At scaled companies, at large organizations. So we've
Right.
launched an enterprise offering formally in
Mm.
24,
Oh,
and we launched it in a really kind of fun, unorthodox way.
okay.
But it's really trying to understand everybody wants that sense of ease, but what are the
Yeah.
problems that are unique to enterprises as well? So that's a growing part of
Gotcha.
the business.
So you have the enterprise component. You grew up
Mhm.
with on the consumer side.
Right.
That's 260 million people. 260 million, that's a lot. And so I'm thinking like, how do you, this is like maybe a design question for the design gurus. How do you, since you have like, someone who's just getting started, just trying to create something cool versus a,
Mhm.
a really well-skilled, well-trained designer, you have the spectrum. How do you design the website to be able to be most accessible, like to present itself across a wide swath of wildly different types of design acumen, let's say. How
Right.
do you figure that out, and how does that evolve and emerge with the
Or more
the design
generally, any of the
elements?
marketing.
Yeah, yeah. How do you do that?
I mean, it's set up by design to address a lot of different use cases. And we're always going backwards from goals, and we're always going backwards from our community. And our community serves very diverse groups of people. So if you're a teacher, there's a certain journey, and we have content, templates,
Oh,
Oh, that's
I see.
nice.
That's
patient,
cool.
things that you can do to bring learning to life for your classroom.
I
If
see.
you are a
Yes.
marketer or a salesperson working in a large organization, there's going to be other tools for you to be
Understood.
able to, for example, connect directly to Salesforce to populate your presentations and do that with great ease. If you're a
Oh,
sales,
Yeah,
I
it
love that.
sounds like in the old days when you used to have what was that called? Clip art that you could put on your PowerPoint. I mean, that was
Barbara's dating
rudimentary, but
herself. It's
yeah,
a
no,
there was
but
a
I
little
mean, it's the
Microsoft
idea. I
paperclip
oh
knew
that
God,
my
yes,
words.
Clippy was in my mind as you were saying.
Clippy.
Yeah,
Oh
I mean,
dear.
so it's kind of like a more sophisticated clip art in a way, but I'm sure it's way more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
think, and then to your point about all the way through to pros, we recently acquired a company called Affinity.
Okay.
They're in the UK, and they have the kind of powerful tools
I
that
see.
a
I see.
designer
I
would
see.
need, right?
I
Vectors
see.
and layers and
Yeah.
just working at that high end of the
That's
craft.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
we are really trying to serve that broad spectrum,
Yeah.
all the way from pro
that's really
designer to
broad.
someone.
It's
It's
super
very
broad.
broad. It's very broad, but it's really in our mission. We truly want to empower the world to design, and
Yeah.
it's literal. It's literal. We just think this should be in everyone's hands, and we're just trying to meet people where they are.
This is another thing we talked about in our proposal when we were putting it together. And I'm curious how you define it. The difference between design, drawing, aesthetic. Like you're using the word design. And so is that something different than aesthetics or drawing or like
Mm.
how does all that come together?
Mm.
Yeah, design actually, it's a word we do use, and we care about design, and our systems and tools are all trained on good design principles to help people make the best possible output. But I feel like sometimes the word design can be a little highfalutin. I think people do come to this tool just to make things, to build things,
Build
to have
things.
an output. And I do think about it a little bit in historical context when you think about, who could communicate visually over time. Maybe a draftsman, maybe someone who's a skilled artist. I mean, the world lost their mind when there was photography, right? What does that mean for
Yeah,
art?
yeah, yeah.
To
Yeah.
have the ability to just capture a picture. Everyone can do that. And
Yeah,
then, of
yeah.
then,
That's a
the
good
internet, the
point.
computer. Let's not forget clip art, Barbara. Obviously, a huge milestone. And then
Clippy. Yes,
don't
of
don't sleep
course.
on Clippy. And then
Yeah.
now moving into what is a world driven by AI creation. But what is
Mm.
the through line that I think is really interesting as
Mm.
the tools create greater ease and greater acceleration and reduce barriers is I think the human piece is the most important piece more than ever because what matters? Judgment, taste, point of view, ingenuity, right? Those are the things that I think will create sparks and difference in a world where the tools become more baseline, where there's more
Yeah.
access and those are more standard. Um, the brightest commodity will be that creative spark. So,
Mm,
we're interested to see how that plays out.
love that.
But I do kinda like to look back to look forward, right? 'Cause it just reminds me we're just in another cycle of innovation right now.
Interesting. Real quick question. So I love this, Barbara, what she said, because I was like trying to like, how do you boil the ocean of like all these possible things? And she has a strategy. It's very clear, which is say we do segmentation, America. So in other words, these use cases are just segments, right? There's a teacher, there's a designer, there's a so and so blah blah. So you have this portfolio, which I find super fascinating, Christine. Talk a little bit about new use cases that are emerging. In
Um,
other words, has AI created now a new cluster of, different design components that would show up as a use case? Or like, how does this happen? Like, what are the newer use cases and maybe a use case that surprised you a little bit with respect to the Canva portfolio?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we're seeing use cases increase in video, certainly. Video is
Ah,
becoming more of the language across everything, so that
mhm.
is increasing, and of course, just the idea of using AI, of prompting to create an image,
Yes.
we've had over 20 billion uses of AI on our tool, which is wild, and people I don't know even know if they're even thinking, "Oh, I woke up this morning, brewed a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna go do some AI." I don't think that's really the mental model. Or,
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
I would love to make this background disappear. I would love to add, some new kind of element, to this design to match what's in
Interesting.
my head.
Uh-huh.
So that's how we're seeing AI, come to bear. The
Gotcha.
other thing I think we're seeing a lot is, shifting expectations around things that used to be hard that shouldn't be hard anymore.
Mm,
And, 2 use cases I would give you on that is we work with a lot of brands, and those brands are creating tons of content, because it's just like the hungry cookie monster of the world wants more content all the time. And I
mhm,
think the expectation is that can all be created on brand, the right colors, the right tone, the right photography, the right tone of voice, without
mhm.
having to, carefully develop each individual asset, but that you can do that at scale really quickly. You can apply your brand system, your brand kit
I
to
see, I
develop
see.
things at scale. So you're spending less time making the technology work and more time on how do you get an idea
Content.
and really scale it into all the places and
Interesting,
spaces you need to be. The other
interesting.
expectation we're seeing shift is this idea that you're going to go to all these different tools to accomplish a workflow,
Mhm.
particularly in marketing. We're seeing that there's this sense of I wanna create here, I wanna refine here, I wanna scale the content here, I wanna publish here. So
Mhm.
we will make partnerships with folks like LinkedIn, so you can make a LinkedIn ad or a post, publish
Oh,
directly,
oh,
get insights, and then bring those insights right back into creation. So it's going
interesting.
from like a linear flow with
Uh-huh,
a lot of switching and baton passing to a closed loop flow, and we're
interesting.
seeing that expectation more and more, with the folks using our tools.
can we shift gears just a little, just because I know you have some really interesting background, and just talk a little bit about how you got here and your personal story, why you're at this new platform and in this new place? Because I know you were at Facebook or Meta for a while, and so you have a technology background. So I'm curious how, like, your personal journey brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Facebook when I joined and Meta when I left.
Now
So
Meta, yeah.
yeah,
Gotta change your CV.
that's that was the journey. I mean, Meta was a great experience in learning how to serve people at scale. I was there when we launched. I worked a lot on our video products, so bringing those to
Yeah,
market,
design.
and then just kind of working on the brand work there, just understanding kind of what brings all these disparate pieces of the product together, which is this idea that people can do more together than alone, and finding opportunities to bring that to life in places like Facebook groups, for example.
Mm,
But I think when I learned about Canva, what really floored me was how that felt like a gap in the market. This sense that, we live in a world that demands visual communication. We live in a world that demands a constant and increasing influx of content to be competitive, to be effective, especially as a marketer. And there was this tool that was literally allowing, people to do that who are outside of maybe the 4 hardworking folks in the design team. And I thought,
Right.
well, this makes a ton of sense business-wise. This is a really unmet need. Then I used the product, and it was so dead simple that I could use it. Okay, I'm not the designer here, right? I'm the marketer, not the designer. And I fell in love with the product experience. And then the third piece, and we probably don't talk about maybe that as much in a podcast like this, but there's a real values-based, anchor of that of Canva, and it's very simple. You'll hear from our founders, they say we have a two-step plan. Step 1 is to be the most valuable company we can. Step 2 is to do the most good we can.
Mm.
And, I was a little bit like, "All right, I'm coming here in Silicon Valley. All right, everyone has a, you know, corporate responsibility." But I think as
Right.
I met more folks on the team,
Mm.
and really understood what that meant in
Mm.
terms of have programs to eradicate extreme poverty, in terms of sustainability efforts, in terms of empowering educators. Like, yeah, they
Mm.
walk the walk. This is real. This is real.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I thought, we all work hard at work and put in a lot of sweat equity. I want to be part of something that
That's
is letting
interesting.
That's
people
very
bring their
nice.
ideas to life and is,
Yeah.
making some real good in the world. And I don't know.
That's interesting.
Those were all the confluence factors that really enticed me to start the journey with Canva.
You know, what's
Interesting.
interesting about what you're saying is with all the pushback some companies are getting on DEI initiatives and social responsibility and things like that. What you're saying kind of reminds me of when I used to talk to Neil Blumenthal from Warby. And it's interesting because, he's eyeglasses letting people see, and you're people creating what they can see, like
Mhm.
the design that they can see. But it was always part of his mission to give back, to give
Mhm.
people glasses and things like that, which it was very authentic to him as well. As I hear you speak about it, it sounds very authentic.
That's
And
interesting.
what he would say, especially in today's day and age when people are trying to decide what to do about some of these values that they had in the past. And what he said was, it's less of a marketing play for us
Yeah.
and it's more of an HR play, the
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
people we get to work at
Yep.
our company and the kind of corporate culture
Mhm.
we want to create. And
Yep.
I think that's an interesting way for people to navigate in some of these political situations right now.
Yep.
Whether or not you wear your values on your sleeve in terms of your marketing and branding, that's one thing, but it does create a certain kind of organizational corporate culture that could be as important because you've got to
Yep.
deliver customer experience. And that's what I hear you saying. Like even as you mention it, it was your motivation to join the company, and what made you feel comfortable there. It's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And, when you have these long-standing values, commitments, whatever you want to call them, I think they transcend politics, hopefully,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
they're just so core, right? You might have different administrations. We work in markets all around the world, but this
Sure.
is true of us everywhere around the world. And I love what you said about culture. I mean, culture is really everything, I think, at a company. Its culture is a competitive edge as well. And people do self select to be part of a
Yeah.
mission driven culture like that. So I love that
Yeah.
Warby Parker parallel.
Yeah. I love that example as well too, because I feel like it's an underestimated power of creating a kind of kinetic energy for the community because when you
Mhm.
show up and you're living in purpose, I your work lands on you totally different, I would think. And this is the reason why Barbara's pointing out as an HR play, perhaps more potently than in addition to, I guess I should say, a marketing play. But I want to get back to 20 billion AI. You said this.
Yeah, I
I'm
did.
the okay, that was incredible. Talk to so, help me understand, Christine, as you're watching people use the platform, you're learning about things that they're doing that is giving you a cultural tell, let's
Mhm.
say. Talk about that
Oh,
process of, like,
wow. That's an
looking
interesting question.
how's that for meaty,
Yeah,
Barbara?
that's good. Good and meaty.
Talk us through that though, because that's an amazing insight to be able to look at all of these creatives and
Mm,
like try to understand where's this more meta thing happening,
mm.
as I'm watching them create. Can you
Yeah,
give us
yeah,
some insight
yeah.
in
Oh,
that?
that's a
Yeah.
wonderful question.
Yeah.
Hard to answer, but wonderful.
That's
Very
by
hard to answer.
saying we
Yeah.
are community obsessed. We're obsessed with our community. That is how we decide what we're building. It's how we iterate. It's how we build our marketing. That is our anchor, much more than anything external. We're always going to go back to them. And one of the magic elements of using Canva is that we have templates and content. So you're not
Mm,
coming in with
mm,
that
mm, 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 mm.
like
Kinda
starting
like
from
TikTok.
nothing.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yeah.
what
Yes.
we really focus on is the idea of how we can have that content be really, really local everywhere around the world. So it will feel
Oh,
right to you if you're in Manila or Sao Paulo,
interesting.
or Delhi, but so it's going to feel that it was made for you. And a big way we do that is, yes, we do work with AI to scale and to understand design logic. But we also work with creators, and creators make 9 out of 10 of our templates that we have. So
Ah,
it's a combination of working with truly local creators and design to see, what is meaningful in each different region. So
gotcha.
whether it's
Gotcha.
something like, I think in France last year, resumes were our biggest use case that people were using, or where we saw the phenomenon of presentation nights. Friends would get together and do presentations, or they would
Oh.
do things like my
That's what
dating life
friends do, huh?
wrapped. So
Barbara doesn't wanna be around friends that are presenting.
listen, they've popped a bottle of bubbly, they're sitting back, and they're really fun.
They're presenting
So
their designs.
I love that,
exactly.
actually.
So, we see these trends happening organically, and then we just kind of lean into them, and how do
That's
we help
nice.
to give them more
That's
more
interesting.
fuel? But it still starts with people, and I
Mhm.
think the AI piece of it is, we built, an LLM last year, the Canva
Oh,
design model, which is focused on, we have all this great templates and these presentations, and it understands design logic. And I think that's what's unique about it. So if you're building something, let's say, Barbara's making a beautiful cover or something for this research study she's undertaking, you can actually kind of jam and work with this LLM like a partner, to say, oh,
ah,
is this composition off? Are there colors
I
that could
see.
make this feel more like warm? So
Ah,
all
that's
of that
interesting.
intelligence is based on this corpus of templates, creativity,
Right.
designers, that we wanna nurture that get royalties actually working with Canva. So a lot of them are,
Ah,
it is a whole creator ecosystem that we're nurturing,
that's
but then we're
cool.
also using it to make your AI
Yeah, it's
companion
so
generation
interesting.
smarter. So
Very interesting.
it's one fuels the other.
Super
Oh,
interesting.
well, Kristine Segrist, we can talk to you all day, but it is the
Yes.
end of our time. I'd like to thank you, Global Head of Consumer and Product Marketing at Canva, for being with us today. And can you tell our listeners where they can go to find out about you or where there's information about your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just go to Canva and have a play is what I would tell everyone. Just go make
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to dive in. And the best way to find me is on LinkedIn for things that are serious and meaningful. And I'm on Instagram for all the silly stuff. So I,
Nice.
that's where I'm located.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so
What a
much
fun
for being
discussion. Thank
here.
you so much for your time.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
this. Yeah.
you. That's all we have time for today. We'd like to thank producers Dion Simpkins and Marissa Rena. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network. I'm Barbara Kahn here with Americus Read.